So welcome. My name is Sally Thomas. I'm from the Hayward Public Library, and we're really glad that you're here today. What we're going to do is give you a brief overview of how a community-driven process led the city of Hayward to become a sanctuary city last year. And then we're going to tell you about our Book to Action immigration project, which was one of the first action items of the city's new commitment for an inclusive, equitable, and compassionate community. We definitely want to leave time for discussion, and we want to know what you're doing in your communities, whether or not your city or county are officially sanctuary cities. But first, I want to thank the CLA for such a great conference and for its choice of themes: no barriers, no walls, access for all. It's been a really phenomenal conference, and for those of you who were here on Friday, a really outstanding keynote talk by Jose Antonio Vargas. So I think this is an opportunity for us to affirm that libraries play a unique role in our communities, not only to educate and inform, but to provide a safe place for people to come together and engage in meaningful discourse about the important yet divisive issues of our time. And libraries, as we all know, are truly one of the last truly democratic institutions, accessible to all. So I'm going to start by playing you a brief video that introduces you to the city of Hayward and our community task force.
This is a story that can only be written about a place like Hayward, an accessible, approachable community nestled in the San Francisco Bay Area of California. Hayward takes pride in being among the most diverse cities in the United States, with 58% of Hayward households speaking a language other than English at home, and close to 40% of Hayward residents having been born outside of the United States. Increased tensions have emerged in our community since the beginning of the last presidential campaign. Recent federal executive orders around immigration and other federal policy proposals that negatively impact marginalized community members has created an intense fear among many Hayward community members.
Children are less concentrate on their academics because of the fear that they can be separated from their parents, or they can needs to start a new life in another country. So that's sad.
In 1992, the City Council adopted the Anti-Discrimination Action Plan in response to social issues at the time. In today's political climate, the City Council appointed a 20-member community task force to update this plan and to, again, foster civic engagement.
I think the community task force, why it's important to be part of it, is that it is important to have as many diverse voices at the table as possible. It also gives us all an opportunity to learn from one another, confirming things we think we already know, or to actually learn things that we were previously unaware of.
I wanted to be a part of this because we're talking about community, and we're talking about people feeling welcome and safe and like they belong and are a part of a community.
The focus of the task force is to update the 1992 Anti-Discrimination Action Plan in order to address the challenges facing Hayward today. To do that, task force members are conducting a series of community conversations so that they can learn firsthand about the experiences and concerns of other community members.
It would be wonderful at the end of this if we had ways and places where we can come together in community, where we can have an opportunity to learn about each other, learn about what it means to make Hayward home, make Hayward family, make Hayward where we care about each other and we're committed to each other and each other's success.
The stories of community members will inform how the 1992 Action Plan and its different sections are updated. Illegal forms of discrimination, accessibility issues, community attitudes and values, community and police relations, and other areas that emerge from the community engagement process will be included in the updated plan. The City Council is expected to review and adopt the new plan in September 2017.
The task force recommended, and the city recently implemented, a website entitled Undocumented Residents and Allies. Included is information about Know Your Rights workshops and other community resources, immigration news updates, local speakers, and information about the Hayward Police Department's policies and practices pertaining to undocumented residents.
Community members, whether born in Hayward, new or longtime residents, immigrants, or refugees, all have the right and responsibility to engage with and influence city decision makers. This includes the City Council and its various advisory commissions and committees. The Hayward Community Task Force and the updated Anti-Discrimination Action Plan will provide ongoing opportunities for community members to become and remain civically engaged into the future. This is what we mean when we say Hayward is the heart of the Bay.
Okay, so fast forward, that video was produced early on when the Community Task Force was just starting its process of meeting and having conversations throughout the community. And then the task force then recommended that the City Council, based on community concerns and input, recommended that Hayward designate itself as a sanctuary city. So it was a long process of reviewing what were the issues and funding, federal funds that were potentially at stake. But in June, the City Council did vote unanimously to designate itself, along with at least 100 cities and counties and even the state, to designate itself as a sanctuary. And this was to affirm its dedication to protect the rights of its undocumented residents by declining to help federal government agencies enforce stepped-up immigration laws. So that was in June, and then it was in November that the Community Task Force completed what they were now calling the Hayward Commitment for an Inclusive, Equitable, and Compassionate Community. So you can see lots of happy faces after a long process of developing this living document, setting forth a series of goals and action items. And if you're interested, you can find the Hayward Commitment online. So one of the first action items of the commitment was Hayward's Book to Action Immigration Project and the city's partnership with Cal State East Bay to distribute for free copies of the memoir by Diane Guerrero, In the Country We Love, My Family Divided. We distributed 250 copies in English and 100 copies in Spanish. We hosted book discussions, keynote events with the author, and civic engagement activities. I meant to stay on that slide for a little longer. So as you may know, Diane Guerrero is the actress best known for her roles in Orange is the New Black and Jane the Virgin. Her undocumented parents were deported to Colombia when she was only 14. And as she declares in her book, behind every one of the headlines about immigration, there is a family, a mother and father, an innocent child, a real-life story that's both deeply painful and rarely told. At last, I've found the courage to tell you mine. So probably most of you know a little bit about Book to Action. It's a program that's being implemented throughout the state. But you may not know that the Hayward Public Library was the first to launch the program in California in 2011, and we're really proud of that. And you can find out more about the program on the California Center for the Book website. And if you're interested in applying to do your own Book to Action program, there's a deadline for an application coming up on November 20th. So as I mentioned, we distributed books in English and Spanish. And also, just for your information, Cal State East Bay also selected the book for its Common Read program for all freshman students. So there were a lot of students and community members all reading the book at the same time. So it was widely read and discussed. And to request a free copy of the book, we asked people to register, and we asked a few questions, including, why do you want to participate? So we heard from high school teachers wanting to learn more about their undocumented students. We heard from immigrants who were concerned about the threats to DACA, and many others who wanted to learn more about the real-life story of someone whose family was broken up by current immigration laws. The program was very successful. We formed really excellent partnerships in the community and at Cal State East Bay. And I'm so pleased that Julieta Martinez and Roxana Cruz, outstanding educators and community leaders, are here today. Our work together this past year is just the beginning of more collaborations to come. The Hayward Library hosted well-attended discussions of the book in English, and my colleague here, Hector Villaseñor, will talk soon about the discussions in Spanish. Other activities included the We Are All Dreamers photo project, which was initiated by a Cal State East Bay student. We photographed a few hundred students and community members expressing their hopes and dreams about immigration in a short message to share on social media. Cal State East Bay hosted Diane Guerrero for 2 large public appearances and a few other smaller meet and greet events throughout the day. The response to her visit was tremendous, and you can see from the long lines, many people stood in line to get her autograph of their copy of the book and to take selfies with her. She was really generous and lovely. And then a few months later, we invited program participants to join a citywide cleanup and community fair. Cal State East Bay student volunteers helped us to distribute more free books, copies of the books, and also free books for children. And also part of the program is the creation of a city-funded Book to Action mural in South Hayward, which is also being supported in part by Cal State East Bay's Center for Community Engagement. And so you can see in the left-hand corner, the artist was there seeking community feedback on a variety of proposals. And I'm happy to report that the mural is currently underway. A series of monarch butterflies, a symbol of freedom for migration across borders, which people will be able to pose in front of to take stunning photographs. So that's a quick overview of the program, and I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Hector Villaseñor.
Thank you, Sally. I came to work at the Hayward Public Library about 3 years ago. Not only was I excited about coming to work for such a diverse library system, I also felt invested because I was born and raised in Hayward. So when we talk about sanctuary cities and the roles public libraries play, one has to consider the changes cities are going through. In one generation, the population of Hayward went from 70,000 to 144,000. In that same time, the demographics drastically changed also. Latinos went from 14.1% of the population to 40.7% today. In that same time, Asians, Pacific Islanders increased from 2.3% of the total population to 25.1%. That same time, whites decreased from 93% to 32.2%. Drastic change in my lifetime, and I was there to see it. When I was at Longwood School, I would wonder where all my classmates were going. They left in droves from K to 6th grade, and some of my new friends moved in. So with that, I'm sorry. So when Sally asked if I would like to be, if the Spanish book group would like to be part of the Book to Action group, I was thrilled and I said yes. Why? Because first, because of the numbers I just said, and secondly, because our population is asking for this type of programming. Right away, Sally put me in contact with Julieta Martinez, who is here today. And I'd like to say that she's a mover and shaker in the Hayward community. She serves on countless citizen boards and advisory groups with the district, the city, and health organizations. And I have to give credit where credit is due. She was responsible for passing out almost 70% of the books in Spanish due to her contacts in the Hayward community. The book discussion was led by Francisco Cermeño, who happens to be a city council member and also a professor at Chabot College. I cannot begin to describe what he brings to the table. Besides asking those tough philosophical questions, he also takes the time to listen to what we have to say about the books. Besides that, he's also a bridge to City Hall, and he also takes the time out just to listen to us and what our concerns as an individual. Besides that, he also corrects us on our Spanish grammar and my Spanglish. Fast forward to the day of the program, and we had a large crowd. People of all ages came, high school, college students, adults, middle-aged folks like myself, seniors. Parents came with their children. Even though it was billed as an adult program, they were welcomed in. Besides that, the discussion was brutally honest. I had one of the attendees share his story of how he came to this country in his early 20s, and he wanted to work hard from sunup to sundown, and somewhere along the line he said there's got to be a better way. He realized that education was the key. Started enrolling in ESL, adult school classes, and now is currently enrolled in college. Another attendee shared how she had a college degree in her country and couldn't get a job there. So she had decided to immigrate to the United States so her children and daughter could do something with their education. The question was posed by Professor Cermeño. He always gets us thinking. The question was posed if we should help or stand in solidarity with undocumented immigrants. There was a wide range of comments. I'm sure you guys have heard some like, you gotta help yourself before anybody else can help you. Others said, it's our duty as human beings. If we see somebody struggling or living in fear in the shadow, it's up to us to give a voice to the voiceless. We all did agree that if we would not know how we all agreed that we would not know how we would react if we came home and our parents were deported at such a young age like Diane Guerrero's parents were. And I personally admire how she shared her story and vulnerabilities. So, when it comes to the question of sanctuary cities and the role of public libraries play, we've always been on that front line, committed to libraries being a safe zones, a place where people can have a free-flowing exchange of different ideas without fear of reprisals because of their race, color, creed, gender, sexual orientation, or immigration status. I'm proud to say that my city and library embodies that, just that. The best defense against fear and misinformation is offense, where some erect barriers, moats, and barbed wire. My city and library are into building bridges to and from the community, book by book, brick by brick. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Julieta Martinez, and she's next.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Julieta Martinez, and I would like to give you an idea of what my life has been here at this country that I came 18 years ago. For about 10 years, I had to work very hard in order to help my husband to maintain our family well-being. Our children are now 18, 14, and 3 years old. For a reason, I had to stop working, but I wanted to continue my education. So I took English classes. I'm still learning. And eventually, I earned my high school diploma. Then, doesn't work. All right, that's the picture. Then I took a training, and then I took a training to be a volunteer for a health center, where I was able to develop some leadership skills. And by the time I became trainer for a new volunteers for that center. Being part of some committees, engaging my children's schools and the community as well, I start to identify needs and concerns that affects not only Latino, but different ethnic groups in the city. From the Community Task Force arise a subcommittee that I was invited to be a part of, and of course, this was a good opportunity to take action by leading outreach and organize a book to action discussion in Spanish, something that I can do very well, better than English. And that was my participation with this people that invite me to be part, no matter what is my accent, speaking English, but I think I'm giving something to the community that gives me a lot. Thank you.
So I'm also nervous. We're all very nervous in Hayward. So my name is Roxana Cruz. I am the outreach coordinator for the Promise Entrance Program and social media coordinator for Hayward Promise Neighborhoods at Cal State University East Bay. Just a show of hands, how many of you have heard of Promise Neighborhoods? A couple of you. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but if you do have more questions about Promise Neighborhoods model, feel free to come and talk to me afterwards. But Hayward Promise Neighborhood was one of the first 5 Promise Neighborhoods grantees as part of the larger Promise Neighborhoods initiative that was started by President Obama and the U.S. Department of Education in 2011. This initiative aims to renovate neighborhoods and reform education by focusing on target neighborhoods and target schools and making sure that they have equitable access to opportunities for success. Each Promise Neighborhood looks differently, but in our Promise Neighborhood, we work with 11 other community organizations, including the City of Hayward, Hayward Unified School District, Chabot Community College, Tiburcio Vasquez, and a bunch of other community organizations to infuse our neighborhood with a continuum of supports and services to help them succeed from cradle to career. So whether that be home visitation nurse for first-time moms, or academic support for students in pre-K all the way to 12, or access to food, or access to mental health and physical health supports. Whatever it is, we really have something for everybody across the continuum for them to succeed. One of the programs at the end of the continuum is a Promise Entrance program. That is a program that I coordinate, that is the program that I coordinate, and the program aims to target students at CSU East Bay who have gone through our pipeline of services and provide them with an opportunity to explore different career interests and develop transferable skills for future success. Most of the students are placed with the Hayward Unified School District, providing academic support inside of the school day and after school, but they're not limited to that placement. Some students are in the College and Career Center, others are serving as program assistants at the district office or for programs at East Bay. It really depends on what the need in the community is and what the interest of our student is. So I'm constantly finding opportunities for them to develop their skills, to network, to give back to the community, and that's kind of how I got engaged in the Book to Action project. I was invited to a meeting by the Center for Education Partnerships at Cal State East Bay to see how we can engage the Hayward Promise neighborhood in the project. And so when I was there, because my job is not really limited just to my program, it's really tied back to Hayward Promise neighborhoods and what we need to do, and we kind of support in all areas that we can. And so because of that, they drew me into the program and they asked me how we can engage Hayward Promise neighborhood. Obviously, being social media coordinator, that's one of the steps that one of the ways I could support. I promoted the Book to Action project on social media to the campus community and to our target schools. I also, made sure that all of our partners, so again, we have 11 partners in our collaborative, made sure that every single partner knew about the Book to Action project so that they could take it back to their respective organizations and make sure that their organizations were spreading it out to their constituents, right? And making sure that everybody in the community really had access and knew about the Book to Action project. In addition, and so here is, in addition, I engaged our staff in the photo project, so made sure that they were participating and that their staff were also participating. So this is just a couple of the photos, but we have a larger library of photos. Additionally, because we do have, now it's 9 target schools, we were trying to find a way to engage our schools and our students in those schools into this project and make sure that they're engaged in the community. And so when I was invited to that meeting and I met Sally and she was talking about wanting to engage more students from the community at the pre-K to high school level, I immediately thought of the World House program, which is a program at one of our target schools, which welcomes all the newly arrived students to the district. They're provided with additional support, and whether it be like school supplies, food, housing supports, and all that stuff that they need to succeed, they're provided that. So I immediately reached out to that program and see how we can connect the program to the Book to Action project. We found that there was a student on campus, not necessarily in that program, but that was very excited about making sure that her school had access to the Book to Action project. And so we kind of partnered up with her and had her be our liaison and had her really advocate for having the students in the school participate in the Book to Action project in one way or another, whether it was reading the book and getting access to the book at the schools, or whether it was going to the keynote address. And so with the help of that student, we were able to bring a set of students from the World House program to the keynote address by Diane Guerrero at East Bay, and they are actually able to be on a panel with her and share their experience about how being an undocumented student has impacted their life, their school trajectory, and their career success. And so that was a very powerful moment for them to be able to have this kind of experience with a well-renowned actress and with other college students on campus. And so during the presentation, the students were able to, part of the students in the field trip were from Teatro Urbano, which is a skit program that students at Tennyson develop to engage their community in knowing their rights. So they do a skit and then they hand out these red cards. And so they were able to do that during the Diane Guerrero presentation. And so here they are with her, asking her for their signature, and here they are really excited after having that experience. But aside from that, I was also able to connect the students, once they were at East Bay, to another student who was documented, who is part of our Promise Interns program, to talk to them about her journey to college and how she was able to finance her education as an undocumented student, because we know that's usually a barrier for students to want to go to college, and she's a prime example of how that is not, like, it may be a barrier, but it's not a complete obstacle that you can't overcome. So that was what I did. And aside from that, I also helped to coordinate the community cleanup and the resource fair, and made sure that our students from the Promise Intern program were there to volunteer, and that students from our target schools were also there to volunteer, but also to take fair in the resource fair. And yeah, that's what I did in this program.
I just wanted to mention that part of the process that Hayward went through was our chief of police came to many of the community meetings, and part of it was to clarify what does a sanctuary city mean and the limitations that the goal was and has always historically been that the Hayward police have never assisted ICE. And so that they were just affirming practices that had already been in place. But alternatively, telling people that if ICE comes, there's really nothing that they can do. And so, because I think a lot of people think, oh, well, if you're a sanctuary city, you can run into City Hall and you'll be protected. Well, that was not necessarily true. So part of the engagement in the communities was to really clarify what the role of our government was and the extent of protections we could provide. Yeah. Yeah, actually, I was asked to be the library liaison to the whole community task force. There were a lot of staff. There was a handful of staff who were appointed to help in various aspects. And for me, it was a really great education for me to meet a lot of the community leaders. So it was a very formalized process involving the library. And it was a part of a process to let people on the community task force know what kinds of programs and what our goals and experience in the library is, and to really encourage participation. And, and I think that was what led me to get to know Julieta and others who were part of a subcommittee that was appointed, a subcommittee on sanctuary city status. So we already recognized there was a lot of controversy. I think overall, the community is a very welcoming place. So there were people who would come to city council meetings to complain about a sanctuary city status, but the city council and the mayor ultimately decided unanimously to, after very careful consideration, to designate Hayward as a sanctuary city. So it's not like the end of the process. It's really an ongoing, how does the city, how does the library play a role in involving and engaging with the community to continue to have those conversations about what does it mean, and to really demonstrate that Hayward is on the side of protecting all of its residents.
We want to say Julieta. You have to find folks in the community who are trusted, respected leaders and get them on board. Really talk about your goals individually and figure out what the common goals are, and then kind of work that way. For us, because we already have a system, Hayward Promise Neighborhoods has been around this is our 7th year now. And so the whole idea is collective impact, is working with others and making sure that everybody does their little part. And whether it's just making sure, inviting a couple people, or whether it's actually coordinating something, everybody's doing their part. So for these kinds of events and projects, we kind of already have a system in place where we go to the promotoras, who are trained community leaders around health, education, and they are the ones who kind of get the message out. Aside from them, we also go to the different organizations and make sure that you have one person at each organization that you personally know, that you're connected with, so that they will actually take it more seriously, right? And then also finding students. Student voice is very powerful. And when we went to the high school and we're like, this is happening, we want to make sure that you're participating, they're like, oh, okay, sounds cool. Great. But they weren't as on board until that one student was like, no, we need to make sure we're a part of this. And she was going to the principal's office every single day and did you figure it out? What are we doing? How is this going to work? And that basically is what brought the school on board. So you have to find the trusted community leaders, the organizations, and even the students who are really willing to really push the common goal forward.
I think it's important because promotoras, I don't know if you're familiar with that concept, but it is mostly for Latino people, women. They took a training that provides some leadership skills. Many mothers are thinking that their jobs is only at home with their children and taking care of the family. But so for some of us, it's like, I don't want just that. I would like to do something else. And that is an opportunity. The training is in Spanish. We do a pilot in English when we invite some other peoples working for organizations to see how is this program helping families. So the women took the training and they realized that even if they doesn't speak English, they can do something. So it's my case. When I took that training, I start to realize that I need to be more present in my community. And when that task force arise, I was worried because the people that I see in that table is like, it is nobody like me. So who can speak about our experience? And because of these relationships at the community, the mayor invited me to be part of the subcommittee, and is when I realized that I can speak not just for me, but other people, that I give information, doing outreach as a promotora, because we don't just give information about the health center, but we have many resources. So we are like a bridge between those organizations that we know in trainings and conferences and workshops. So we connect and we are part of that community, so they trust on us.
I was just going to add, also find teachers at each school site that are really like the movers and shakers. I mean, all teachers are great, but there's always those one or two teachers that really go like just overboard and really do the most for their students. You have to find those teachers and get them on board, because if you get them on board, even if they can't really help you in coordinating or getting students there, they can get the word out. And if they're the ones telling other people like, hey, you need to do this, teachers are more likely to listen to them than they are to me, right? I can say, I have all these great things and it's so amazing, and, I have money, and it takes that one actual personal connection to really make that like something that folks will be interested in. So that's my suggestions for you.
Yeah, it was just a slice of Hayward. We had retired doctors, we had teachers that weren't Latino. They just wanted to come and see what's, be part of it. Like we said, Hayward's a very inclusive city, and that's how since I've been raised there, I was taught that way. You don't judge anybody by the color of their skin, and I'm glad to be working for a system like that, a public system.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out the last slide that we listed a few strategies for success in terms of aligning library programs with city priorities and identifying much of what people have already addressed, but to find allies. And it can be overwhelming in the beginning because you may not know, you won't know the people that are the movers and shakers. But, our advice is start small, begin to talk to allies in the city government and people who are engaged in the community, and begin to identify and introduce yourself and start brainstorming. I feel really fortunate that we have connected through this experience with both Roxana and Julieta, and I think it's the beginning step to then figuring, okay, what next? What can we do? And we've already been starting to brainstorm. So just start small if you haven't begun yet, and you'll be amazed to see what kind of opportunities arise.